the wealthiest get to be the wealthiest because they didn't have morals, because
I
they're not
think
willing
so.
to play by the rules,
Yeah.
and they don't care how they make their money, and so they'll do anything. And this is why it's the Elon Musk, it's the Peter Thiels, it's the Daniel X, it's the like all of the lows of the low who have the most wealth, which is just so unfortunate. I,
Am I going to do the intro? Sure,
yes,
I
yes.
can do the intro. Hi, everyone. I'm just kidding. So, welcome to Friends Let's Discuss, the bi weekly ish podcast hosted by myself, Ms., and
And me, Fabs.
where we are two friends generally sitting over a cup of tea, just kind of discussing the craziness that's going on in the world. This is a place for you if you just want some comfort that you are not the crazy person in the asylum. There is just a lot of crazy stuff happening at the moment, and we welcome you, and we hope you can enjoy and hopefully partake at some point as well, which would be great.
Definitely. Absolutely. So we're going to start with something relatively lighthearted, and hopefully I'll be able to like just edit in the image. But there's this beautiful image of a young woman who is clearly just like found that the last straw hit her while she was in the bathroom, and in her bathrobe has gone out into the cold streets of Minnesota to protest against ICE. And she's still in a bathrobe, still in her slippers. And it's just like, I can just imagine her partner being like, where are you going?
Where are you
It's like, I
going?
just had enough. I don't care no more. I'm going. Where's my phone? And she's just out there recording. Like, I just love that energy. Like, it's fantastic.
It's amazing, love. And honestly, and please forgive my absolute ignorance on this, but the people of Minnesota, the people of Minneapolis, I'm not great with American states, but they're just such heroes, honestly. Like the people that are getting out there in this insanely cold weather as well to just
Yeah.
to fight. And it's not just for their neighbors, it's not just for the nonsense that comes out of the right wing media to justify these actions, but really to fight for their freedom. We are kids and we are the product of generations that were built on democracy and freedom of the people. And this is being eroded so quickly in America. The Constitution is being eroded. Every time I see it on social media or on the news, I'm just so amazed. So if we by any chance have any listeners that are from Minneapolis or Minnesota, we seriously hold our hands up to you guys. We're so, so proud of you. And just know that we are 100% supporting you from here. So across the pond in the UK, you've 100% got our support and our admiration.
It's freezing temperatures out there, but people are still
Seriously.
getting out, making a difference. And yeah.
In their
It's all
bathrobe and slippers. In their bathrobe and
just
slippers, just in
when
0
it's time,
degrees
it's time.
Celsius weather, just to be able to capture what's happening. Come on, people. It's wild. Super
I mean,
amazing. I'm glad we started there because it's going to be a hell of an episode, this episode. Because again, you and I caught up probably a couple of days ago. And in the meantime, there's been a whole host of stuff that's happened. So what should we cover today, love?
so I'm a football fan. I support Arsenal, and it's been great this season. I don't know if you're aware, Mares. I'm not sure how closely you follow the Premiership. We're top of the table, which is fantastic, right? And it's funny because I think as an Arsenal fan, when I was a kid, I actually grew up closer to the Spurs stadium, right? And one of my friends who was an Arsenal fan said, like, why are you supporting the Spurs? Don't make sense. Arsenal have the best players. We got Ian Wright, we got Kevin Campbell. You should be supporting Arsenal. I was like, it's a strong argument, my friend. I'm going to be an Arsenal fan from now on, right? Best decision I made in my life.
Yeah.
But then there's a group of young people who I guess are maybe 5, 10 years younger than me, who would have seen like Man United be totally dominant. And they were like the biggest club in England, maybe in Europe for a brief period of time. You know, they did the treble in 1999, which means they won not only the Premier League, the FA Cup, but also the Champions League, right? So champions of Europe. They've fallen on a hard time since then. And it's been entertaining for me as an Arsenal fan to see this happen because they've not managed to like come back to anything like their former success. and they've started to pick up literally in the past few weeks. They fired the most recent full-term manager, Ruben Amorim, and they've got an interim manager who was a former player now. The reason I give you this context is because yesterday, and we're recording, what's today, is 12th of February, it emerged that Jimmy Ratcliffe, the co-owner of Manchester United, had given an interview with Sky Sports and said something pretty close to this country, being the UK, is being colonized by immigrants. And it's like, whoa, right? Now, bear in mind, Jimmy the Ratcliffe is one of the wealthiest people in Britain, okay? Except for the fact that he's moved to Morocco to evade the
Monaco.
taxes in the UK. So
Yeah.
he's an immigrant at the moment. And yet he's complaining about some of the poorest people in the UK whilst being one of the richest people in Britain. Like I'm stumbling because it makes so little sense I can barely bring it together. It's just the maddest thing that you hear, but it feels like something you hear so often.
Yeah, and to your point, even on the poor, like, I mean, the immigrants aside, almost of, he's also complaining about the number of people that are sitting on benefits. Whilst, from the Guardian article this morning, his company received a £120 million grant to this chemicals company on which his £17 billion fortune largely rests to protect 500 jobs. So it's okay for corporations to receive benefits, but it's not okay for the poorest people in our society who have fallen on hard times. They've lost their job, they're sick, they maybe just need additional support, they're disabled. They're not allowed to receive benefits from the system, not least because this bugger doesn't even bloody pay taxes here. So he doesn't pay taxes, but he's complaining about the system that we instantly pay for, that's paying taxes, that then benefited him personally from corporate subsidies effectively, just so that we could protect the jobs in the chemical plant. Because God forbid someone with £17 billion fortune who doesn't pay tax in this country would want to be loyal to this country and her people and protect those 500 jobs of the British citizens of the country that he's so afraid is being colonized. Make it make sense. Seriously, make
It's
it
just
make sense.
disgusting. Like the level of greed and selfishness is so far beyond what is normal. And I don't understand how it happens so frequently. Like as soon as people get that sort of 0.1% level of wealth, they're like, I don't want to share any of this. Like I have so much and I don't want to give it to anyone. Like, what is going on? Like what I'm sorry.
Yeah,
It's just
and that's
crazy.
it, isn't it? Because whenever you talk, I always think when you watch these shows, right, love, you know, these ones, these stupid, I don't know, talk shows or whatever they are, and they always have some that I don't like this, full disclosure, I don't like this woman. I think her name is Carol. She just screams endlessly right wing talking points on TV shows. But whenever you talk about these guys, a wealth tax, paying their fair share, you know, their effective tax rate is on their wealth is lower than what you would pay on your effective wealth, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, but you know, it's really important because they're the ones that generate the jobs and the investment. I'm sorry, are you watching what's happening right now? Because we just had to pay 120 million. So those 500 jobs were protected because this extremely rich man refused to do the right thing. Or the fact that how many layoffs have Amazon done in the last year? I think they must be up to what, like at least 100,000 layoffs in total just in the last year, all over the place. Not just, obviously not here, but obviously largely in the US in their corporate functions. So I do really struggle with that argument. And as someone who's worked in corporate for a long time, I think people fundamentally just don't understand corporations, particularly listed companies who are all about shareholder value. If they think that, you know, the reason that they can get away with paying tax, essentially, by the way, the vast majority of corporations pay tax on the net amount of profit, i.e., they take away all of the expenses because they are investing. So they're paying people's salaries. Those people are then paying national insurance and PAYE, et cetera, et cetera. They only pay tax on the net profit position. As soon as we get what should be our salary, the tax is taken off of it before it even hits our bank account. It's a complete opposite for those guys. So yeah, just to put a bit of context into it, it was, and I think it was interesting as well because he stated figures for population numbers that were just wildly wrong.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So like, what I think he said that like the UK population in 2019 was around like 55 million, and actually it was closer to 67 million or something like that, right?
Yeah, it's something crazy like that. Yeah, so I think the UK population, according to the ONS, obviously, which manages all of the stats, it was in 2022 something like 65 million people, and then we went up to just under 70 million people in 2025. So in a couple of years, it increased, obviously. He doesn't take into account the fact that there are 3 to 500,000 births every year. But yeah, essentially, it was wrong. Just to clarify, that the numbers were wrong. The idea, using the term colonized as well, I think maybe you don't quite understand what colonization means. I don't really think that you quite get it.
Also, it's like, okay, Britain has been colonizing countries over the world for a long time, and apparently that's what's made Britain great. It's what made put the great in Great Britain. Yet if it happens the other way around, this is something that we should be fearful of because we shouldn't allow anyone to colonize. So you understand that colonization is wrong, yet when it happens historically, you're proud of it. It's like the level of hypocrisy is like amazing. How do you do that?
They do that. I don't know what I think that's the thing for me, isn't it? Like, that always befuddles my mind. I wonder if people who are listening feel the same. Is because there is so much hypocrisy with it. Sometimes I'm like, are they are they being serious right now? Like, is this for real? Like, they're not like when you have, like, I don't know, for example, I don't know, Suella Braverman defecting and talking about the ills that were done to the country when she was part of the government that did the ills. At one point, she was the Home Secretary. You're like, I don't understand this level of kind of dissonance that makes you live in this sort of alternate reality. And I feel the part that upsets me the most about it is the only way that you think you can do that is if you assume that all of us, and that when I speak to us, I'm talking about the 99% of people, the working classes, the middle classes, that you think that we are all just a bunch of complete idiots. Seriously, that's the only way that you think that you get away with this, basically.
I think this is the thing. There's intellectual dishonesty because they know full well what they're doing, but because they've gone away with it for so long, it
Mm,
empowers them to continue to do it. So there's this kind of like uh corrupt cycle of just being perpetuated and they're not being held accountable. I think this is the thing for me is that like, yeah, we have bad politicians, but we kind of had the politicians that we deserve. And
mm,
this is on us, right? But we can do better. Do you know what I mean? We can get to a point where the politicians are doing the right things in the right way for the right reasons. But we've got to demand it and we've got to pay attention. Like freedom doesn't come for free. It's hard work. But if we want to continue to have like quality of life, which we actually deserve, then we're going to have to work for it and we're going to have to hold these people accountable. We're going to have to do the research. We're going to have to vote correctly, like in the right way. And we're going to have to sort of see through the propaganda. And unfortunately, so much is just being controlled by the existing media owners, whether it be the Rupert Murdochs of the world or the Jeff Bezos of the world with the Washington Post, like whoever it is. Like so much of what is being shoved down our throat is supporting this narrative, and it's hard when it's a constant battering propaganda coming our way. It's hard to push back against it, but nothing worth having comes easy, fortunately. So accept that it's hard and work hard to see through it.
because I guess the
I guess
alternative
the old
is that we would have to be standing out in the English rain in our dressing gown and slippers, taking pictures of a masked ice force that Farage also wants to bring into the UK that are going to be stealing your neighbors. And now, granted, the vast majority, despite what the right say, the vast majority of the UK population is still white. I think its last count, it was something like 86% of the population. So maybe you are okay with masked agents coming and kidnapping your neighbor's 5-year-old child because he's brown. Or maybe you're okay with, the guy that you go in, I don't know, you go and buy your food from or whatever from the corner shop, that he gets arrested, even though he's British, because he's brown, right? So like you're happy for him to get hauled away. But I just don't believe that that's us. I just don't believe that that's us in this country. I don't believe that it is who we are. And it does require us to really critically reason, to your point, cut through the noise and the propaganda and really think, look, even if you don't have to believe what we're saying or what other people are saying, is just look at what's happening in America. It's exactly the same playbook. And the challenge is, it's once these guys come into power, the fight is infinitely harder than before they get into power, right? Like, look at what the Americans are having to do right now. Once Trump is in power and he has that power and he's got a group of people that are loyal to him and not the Constitution, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. None of these people will be held accountable, which is a different obviously a different episode. But, and if you are feeling overwhelmed, like we are, to be honest, now I don't think I'm necessarily going to help in this episode, because I'm going to share with you a really interesting article that the Byline Times shared. But if it does feel like a lot and there is so much corruption, the point is, all I would say is think back to what we started with, which is look at the power of the people. Right? Look at the power of the people in Minneapolis and Minnesota who are saying, no, you will not come here as some kind of Gestapo and terrorize people in my country and my community. You will not have it. We will not have it. And it's always the power of the people, love. So don't, if you're feeling disheartened, we're with you, because we get it. We feel the same, but we as a collective, we have a power in our vote, and we have a power to hold these people accountable. We kind of have to do it, because otherwise we end up like America, which incidentally this week has moved down the global transparency index, which basically measures the level of corruption. So if you may recall, probably about sort of 20, for those of us who are slightly older than some of our listeners, 20, 25 years ago, the America, the UK were held up as kind of paragons of not doing what the third world did and having these kind of corrupt institutions and all this corruption and corruption. Whenever you talked about Africa or Asia, everyone said, oh, there's corruption, corruption, corruption. We've actually moved down the index. And frankly, I'm surprised in America, particularly, it hasn't moved down further, given especially what happened this week with this nonsense with the bridge and the billionaire. But it's crazy, isn't it? Like, how did we get here?
Yeah. And then I think it's one of those things where it's, I don't know where the phrase comes from, but it's one of those things where it happens slowly and then all at once, right? It's like it's been coming, and in hindsight, we probably could have seen it coming, but now it's just accelerating at such a pace where it's almost out of control, and it's happening in such a visible, brazen way. We saw William in Saudi Arabia. Bear in mind that we know this is the state that sanctioned the killing of an American journalist who was, hacked to death with a bone saw, like sickening. And now we've got Prince William, shaking hands with that guy, like, and doing all the nice stuff. And as an aside as well, like, I find it really interesting that you've got Cristiano Ronaldo. I don't know if that's a name that's familiar to you. He was like one of the biggest personalities in football, amazing football player. Again, built his name at Manchester United before going to Real Madrid, and is now playing in the Saudi Pro League. So it's a professional league in Saudi Arabia. The the Saudi Investment Group is a public investment fund, and they own four teams in that league, and they pay Cristiano Ronaldo an annual salary that's reported to be 175 million pounds.
My God, that's insane.
Bear in mind, like, Cristiano Ronaldo is considered one of two of the best players alive today, right? You kind of think, okay, I can see why you might pay him a ridiculous salary. He's 41. Okay, so he's not at his peak. Most football players have their peak at around 28 years old. So at 41, you're well past your peak, right? So no other 41-year-old with that, even with the ability he has today, would have been paid that type of money. The reason why he's getting paid so much is because he's doing so much work to help, I guess, sanitize the reputation of Saudi Arabia. So there's
God.
this extra layer where because Cristiano Ronaldo is like so famous, I think he's one of the most followed people on Instagram, has like some of the largest following. So he's influential. He's also using his money to sort of buy media corporations. So he owns a lot of the media in Portugal. So there's an opportunity for him to influence that media directly as well, which I assume is being directed in some part by his his owners. So there's all this
Allegedly.
level of right, there's all this like corruption happening, which is really difficult to prove like directly, but there's clearly something going on. It doesn't all add up, doesn't make sense. And I guess like there's portions of the media that is sort of professional media that can't talk about it in the same way that we can because
Mm.
we're not owned by anyone. We have no advertisers. We don't make any money doing this. So there's no one to offend at this point, right? So we can speak quite freely, but it kind of goes to your point of how like corruption happens quite slowly. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, so this is where we are now.
Mm. Yeah. It is
Yeah,
wild, isn't
it's
it?
fine. So it's crazy. I
Yeah.
don't know how else to take a to sort of piece it together. Um, and also with Jimmy Lai going being imprisoned now for 20 years. I mean that's a life sentence at his age. And this is like, a British citizen who is now being handed over to Chinese authorities for protesting against the changes taking place in Hong Kong. Bear in mind, Hong Kong was meant to be a sovereign state until 2047. It was meant to be a process taking place over that time, but it's just been accelerated to the point where now it's just more or less being viewed as part of China. So again, like I think if you grew up in a sort of in a democratic Hong Kong and are used to those democratic freedoms,
Mm.
and now you're protesting against it as a British citizen, I think you would expect to have some amount of protection. That's just not the case. So it's really tough, really tough.
Yeah, it's really tough. And it's another, unfortunate legacy. You were talking about colonization earlier. Like, the Chinese felt that was their territory however many years ago. It was captured by the British, and then obviously they agreed to a handover. I think that the thing for me is, because everyone criticizes China a lot, but to my understanding, China has never professed itself to be a democracy, like ever, right? It's not a place where they welcome criticism of the state. There's a way that things run there. And it fascinates me when there is not to say that I think it's right, but at the end of the day, it fascinates me that we criticize China. So even in the case of Jimmy Lai, like there's obviously Keir Starmer immediately came out and was critical of the sentencing, et cetera, et cetera. And yet in the UK, this government and previous were more than happy to arrest British citizens, including elderly British citizens, some of whom who couldn't walk, for protesting against the genocide in Palestine. Again, in this whole spirit of just like blah, 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 befuddles my brain. I just struggle because I can say, yes, I don't agree with the sentencing of Jimmy Lai. I feel for the people of Hong Kong because once you've grown up in a democracy and you understand the freedom, to have it snatched from you, it's very, very difficult. And it's exactly really ironically what America's going through right now, right? Because we were so used to having those freedoms. It's only when they start to get taken away from you in this big gulf, as you say, they're chipped away, but when it comes for you big, then it's really hard. But it is ironic to me that we, particularly like the US or in the UK here, we want to sanction others. You know what I mean? That I find that a bit because our freedoms are
Yeah,
being chipped away constantly, like
yeah. And I
constantly.
think this is it. It's this. It's like because I think there was a couple weeks ago where I was sort of saying how it's a positive thing most likely for the British economy that we've got this deal with China now, right? Like it's not the world's greatest deal, but it's a path to I guess greater economic structure with one of the largest economic powers in the world, right?
Mm.
And given that we are no longer part of the EU, we kind of need that as a country. And it's that weird thing of like, how do we view politics in a more mature, um, grown up, less Disney world, where we know these deals are being made because there's some sort of good that we would hope comes of it. We're not happy about all of it, but it's like, is there on the scale of things, are we taking more good than bad? None of it is comfortable. And I think that's a struggle, right? We come from sort of a idealist viewpoint of saying like only good things should happen.
Mm.
And that would be great. Also good is a matter of perspective. Like what's best for China is to sort of have control over Hong Kong, is probably to have control over Taiwan, right? Like all of this feels like it's almost inevitable. I don't think any of the other nations are going to push back on it when it happens. So it's more likely to happen than not at this point. So if you are in China, you may feel like all of this is positive news and the rest of the world should not complain. I think just sat here in the UK as someone who has grown up with this idea of freedom to criticize government, politics, and so on and so forth, it's like feels uncomfortable. And I'm trying to strike that balance of like, who am I to criticize another culture? But then human rights are human rights and probably should be non-negotiable regardless of where you are. It's never easy, and I won't profess to be an expert on anything. So it's this is one of the things we're just talking it through. We're just trying to work it out between us.
But that's it, isn't it? And you can sense it, like even exactly as you say, we're talking it through, even as you're speaking, love. And it is really, it's a really difficult one, isn't it? It's a difficult balance to strike because ideally we talk a lot about like moral consistency, and I feel like there's lots of instances where we haven't seen moral consistency, like talking about Russia's invasion of Ukraine, not caring about Israel's invasion of Gaza. As you say, we kind of have to be okay that China have taken on Hong Kong, even though not everybody in Hong Kong wanted it. So I can't remember if there was a vote or anything. I don't think there was, but there was no choice really for the people. And similarly, Taiwan doesn't want to. But the vast majority of Taiwanese people don't want to. So then it's kind of it's a difficult one, isn't it? Exactly as you say. Like part of me is like, but at the end of the day, what right do we have to kind of impose our perspective and our will on others? Particularly when, you know, throwing stones at glass houses. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like, I think America's always great at that, particularly recently, like Trump talking about, whatever nonsense he's talking about. And he's like the most autocratic regime around, super corrupt, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I don't know, love. Like I struggle with it too. But then I guess that's the challenge with Prince William visiting MBS as well, because the Saudis have so much money and they have a great deal of power. Obviously, they have the oil, etc. So, as a wider kind of going concern as a country, given that we are separate from Europe and now we're very, very isolated, maybe we don't have a choice but to have to do business with an alleged beheader. Do you know what I mean? Like maybe bone saw is just what we have to accept. Like that's just the cost of doing business now. Like even to a certain extent, as Lewis Goodall was saying in his article, the fact that Keir Starmer can't say it, but it seems like he essentially hired Mandelson knowing that he was part of Epstein's cabal, because that would mean that he had something to talk about with Trump. I mean, it's extremely disgusting and ugly. But to maybe to your earlier point, unless we change it, and that is the collective we thing, is nothing will change, love. And I think a big part of that, which I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people won't like, is we do need to admit that a closer EU relationship would be much more sensible for us in the state that the world is right now. But I guess that's probably a slightly different topic. But yeah, and it does feel it feels hard. So, like for example, I was talking to you earlier. I came the Byline Times, which I love because they do such incredible, like proper journalism, like proper investigative journalism. Their article today obviously references. There's been a lot of references between the former Israeli Prime Minister Epstein, now Peter Thiel. So, for those of you who don't know Peter Thiel, he's the founder of Palantir. He is, as I think Polanski's been talking a lot about Palantir's links in the NHS and the Ministry of Defense. But essentially, he's Epstein had ties with foreign intelligence. There's potentially evidence that he was funded in large part by Russian organized crime, that he has links to Russian intelligence agencies, he has links with Mossad. He was apparently a limited owner of one of Thiel's companies, and he provided a significant amount of funding as well. Then Epstein potentially apparently introduced Mandelson to Thiel. So then that gets him to give Mandelson basically to get Thiel and his organizations, his companies into the heart of the British government. And now we have Palantir in the NHS. And Palantir are using, so essentially, Palantir now hold, from the article, more than £670 million in UK government contracts spanning NHS patient data, Ministry of Defense systems, police intelligence databases, and nuclear weapons cloud computing at the atomic weapons establishment.
Well,
Huh? Say what now? Like what? What the fuck's happening?
it's a crazy thing as well. And just to sort of add to Peter Till's list of indiscretions, like the Financial Times have an article where they are saying that Peter Till and Daniel Eck, uh, CEO and founder of Spotify, they backed a startup which has makes a military drone, which has now won a contract with a German company worth as much as 4.3 billion euros,
Oh my
and like
god.
some sort of apparently some sort of kamikaze drone. So not even just like a surveillance where it's like it's not it's not using lethal force. This is like military weapons to take the lives of military soldiers. So it's 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 really uncomfortable when you think like obviously Spotify, the platform, is something that millions of people use. I think their shares have actually increased because they were able to add more subscribers recently. I think they increased their subscriber base by 9 million people. And so, you think you're just doing something relatively harmless, listening to music is something that all of us enjoy doing, and it's supporting the production of lethal military weaponry. It's kind of sickening,
Mate.
if I'm honest, and I don't know what to do about it, but I feel like at least let's talk about it, right?
And it's a little bit like to your earlier point, what's wild is I feel like maybe I'm doing this thing I was talking about last week that my uncle does is like harking back to the good old days where rich people were just happy to be rich off what they did. Do you know what I mean? Like I founded Spotify. I'm now a billionaire or whatever it is. I'm good. Happy days. Yay. Awesome. But now it's like, ooh, I know. What about if I take 100 million of my excessive wealth and try and make it 500 million? And I don't really care how I do it. So let me get into the weapons trade. Sure, why not? What a great idea for me to get even more money. Like, I don't understand, dude, honestly. Like,
It's one of the scary things. It's like when you get wealthy, do you just lose all your morals? Like, or is it that the wealthiest get to be the wealthiest because they didn't have morals, because
I
they're not
think
willing to
so.
play by the rules,
Yeah.
and they don't care how they make their money, and so they'll do anything. And this is why, like, it's the Elon Musk, it's the Peter Tills, it's the Daniel X, it's the like all of the lows of the low who have the most wealth, which is just so unfortunate.
Yeah, I do agree because I think we talked about this once when we were all out as friends, and I have this theory, which again is probably one of the questions for another episode of the podcast is can you ever get to a multimillionaire or billionaire by having a consistent moral compass? And my belief is that you can't if you are the one building the wealth. So, for example, one of our friends mentioned Jeff Bezos's ex-wife, obviously, who got a significant amount of money in the divorce settlement. And she's an incredible woman. She's just giving it all away, essentially. But technically speaking, and I don't mean to cause any offense to Mackenzie Clark, I think her name is, but she didn't earn it as such. So she wasn't necessarily running, she didn't create Amazon herself. She didn't build it up to what it is today. She didn't build out the operations and logistics and all that kind of stuff, is my understanding. She played an incredibly important role, obviously, which is why she deserved the settlement. But so I genuinely mean people who have built it, like who have built it to the stage that it's got there. Because I suppose for me, the broader thing is that, capitalism is a system of exploitation, right? So, like, how can you, I don't know if you can be morally I mean, even think about the decisions that we have had to make over the years when you have to let people go because your cost base is too high. Where I remember one of my colleagues talking about how they'd gone to a country, had a big town hall, and then effectively told all of those people they were losing their jobs, and then had to run out of there because they were scared they were going to get chased. And it was said with a degree of levity, which, like, I know the person and I know what they meant, but the fact is, you can't be, I guess, morally have a moral conscience, rather, to make decisions like that. Because I've always really struggled with it, honestly. And
Yeah,
I always think that's why I was always reluctant to a big degree to really progress too high, because those are the kind of decisions you will have to make. You know what I mean?
I don't know if you a while ago I came across like shareholder primacy and like the source of it, like, and I don't know if I
Oh, was that
shared it
the
with you.
Ford thing that you told me about? Oh,
Yeah, 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 yeah. I found that so interesting. Um, and again, this is a really brief summary. As we say in every episode, fact check, do your own research, right? But essentially, Henry Ford had the option to give some of the profit that he was making back to his employees and also hire more employees, right? So basically doing good in the community. And the Dodge brothers were his main competitors at the time, and basically argued that he wouldn't be allowed to do that because it wouldn't be the best interest of his shareholders. So their competitor was like, "You're not doing what's best for your shareholders, and so we don't want you to employ more people. We don't want you to pay your employees more money." Basically, they recognized that if he did that, then he would attract some of their employees, and also like the quality of employee available to him would increase, and that would give him a competitive advantage. They won that legal case. The Dodge brothers won that legal case, and now shareholder primacy is used as a legal reason why employees are not the most important thing within a business, and that you've got to do what's best for the shareholders at all time. I still don't think that like businesses have to take it as literally as that, but it's one of those things where it's kind of like a landmark case and set a precedence, which I think has played out in the decades that have followed. It's kind of unsettling that that's the way things work, but certainly in the US seems to be how businesses are being run today.
yeah, maximizing shareholder value. That is the primary objective of a listed organization, unfortunately. And with that comes, and the thing I think about it is, as well, is, and again, sorry, we are going slightly off tangent here, is for people who have worked in or understand these corporations, it's really easy to cut through the sound bites that these kind of right wing commentators make about billionaires and millionaires. Because fundamentally, the system, exactly as you say, is if you are a listed company and you've secured funding, your primary objective is to maximize value for your shareholder. Particularly in America, and this isn't everywhere, but they have quarterly cycles, right? So you have to report the performance of the company in a quarterly cycle. Ahead of that cycle, you have people that they call financial analysts that work for all of the big funds, like the hedge funds and the different financial institutions, that essentially put an opinion out on how successful that company is going to be in this quarter. So they'll say, like, for example, company X is going to achieve 10% growth, and therefore their EPS is going to be between a range of, I don't know, 1 to 5 or whatever it is, right? And then the results come out. And if the results are different in any way, typically they're negative compared to what the analysts had said, then the stock price goes down. So, like, I always found it super fucking fascinating because then you basically got these random people that kind of sit outside of the business, that aren't in the business, that don't know the business, effectively putting a guesstimate out there, and then when their answers were wrong, they then effectively affect the price of the company. Wild. To me, this whole kind of system of this everything interlinked and all a little bit dodge, effectively, I always find it really fascinating. But yeah, the only way in order to be able to maximize your shareholder value is through growth. The growth typically means that you have to be able to grow your profit. The only way to grow your profit is either by increasing your revenue or reducing your costs. So you increase your revenue by either selling more to whoever, or you increase your prices. That's another way. The alternative way is cutting costs, which is why they do things like layoffs, like Amazon are doing right now. They're obviously laying off like 100,000 people here, 10,000 people there. I think unemployment is one of the highest levels that it's been in America at the moment. And it's a constant, endless cycle of just no kind of job security, no safety, because that's just not a priority.
And to your point, because it's not a priority, I think that's probably what's accelerating this interest in AI, because it it just eliminates so much cost, right? Like
100%.
immediately you go from saying, okay, I need, 1,000 workers to do this, to one worker can control 100 bots agentically, and now I don't need all these people, which is one of my biggest costs. Boom, gone. And it looks like I was looking at the sort of the main companies in AI, and you've got obviously Nvidia, Meta, Facebook parent company, Alphabet, which is the Google parent company, Microsoft, Amazon, and their capex expectation for 2026 is around $650 billion. And you're like,
It's
whoa.
insane. That's insane.
So, and what I think the way we should read this is that that money is being spent to reduce as many jobs as possible. I can't, it's hard to view it any other way, because the excitement around it is only to generate greater profit, reduce costs. Like that's what AI does, which
Mm.
anyone selling AI will tell you that, you know?
It's actually, to be honest, it's 100% that, love, but I would argue that it's even broader than that, because what they're wanting to do is to lead the race with this amount of investment in providing these AI solutions that don't just benefit their own company. So they're not going to just see productivity gains by getting rid of people in their own company. They're also going to be developing AI solutions that I think you were saying earlier that affected things like Duolingo's share price potentially. I think you mentioned a 40% drop. It's going to affect the legal industry. It's going to affect the accounting industry. It's going to affect the tax industry. Like, it's so broad, because effectively what they're doing is by developing the AI solutions, they're then increasing their revenue significantly. They're also then using the bots, to your point, to bring productivity gains internally to then significantly reduce their cost base. So, from a shareholder perspective, which is why the market is so heavily weighted at the moment with all of these kind of 5 or 6 big tech companies, is because then the expectation is that profits are just going to go through the roof. And yet, I pretty much will guarantee that their taxes are not going to go through the roof. They barely pay. I think Bernie Sanders shared the other day something like Elon Musk companies paid something like 0% in federal taxes last year since Trump came into power.
Insane.
All of the tech companies have paid less than single digits in terms of federal taxes. So then you are now firing a load of people, loads and loads of people are unemployed. You're also not paying your taxes, which helps the state then take care of those people. Going back to our friend Peter Thiel, who comes out with some hella weird stuff. Like, this guy is a true Bond villain who doesn't seem to like humanity that much.
And this is it. Like, I don't know how it gets to the point where we fund these people and allow these people to do it. And at this point, it's almost where you're like, well, where do we go from here? How do we put the toothpaste back in the tube? You know, because it's out there. I think there's a lot that we have to sort of work through, because you and I both use AI. right? And we both recognize the value of it. We've like criticized Daniel Ek, the Spotify owner, but we're doing a podcast and it's probably going to go
Probably
on his
streamed there.
platform, right? Right. We're going to promote the podcast clips and it's probably going to go on Meta's platforms, right? And so there's this weird thing that I've not been able to reconcile in terms of like these things exist and I use them, but I recognize it's not entirely virtuous. There's this weird balance that and compromise that we're having to make. And I don't see a way around it. Again, we're just talking through it because if we don't talk, then we will go crazy. But yeah, I don't know what to do with that.
I feel like, you're 100% right, love. And you're right. I talk about this a lot, right? We kind of battle. We really battle this. And I think a lot of people do, right? Because at the end of the day, social media is being used to share the atrocities that ICE are committing in America and to highlight, like I follow a lot podcasts like the Midas Touch, for example, that try and expose all of the government corruption, and they use the platforms, etc. And at the moment, I think, but the difference is we approach it with a healthy skepticism to say that right now we have no choice. So we get what we can from it. Like if we in any way, shape, or form can help to make people feel less alone and less like they're going crazy, because this is really awful. Like there's so many awful things, but don't worry, we are together. And if we can inspire by using these god awful platforms, that maybe people feel empowered, that actually they do have a voice, they do have a choice. They don't have to accept this exploitation. They don't have to accept this awful cabal of people that effectively puppet masters of our lives. Meanwhile, going after the poorest people in society and the most desperate. That to me is the only way that I reconcile it, love, to be honest with you. Not to say that I think there aren't solutions, right? Like we supposedly have this government wealth fund in the UK. Why aren't we investing in a UK or European equivalent of Instagram or ChatGPT? Like, why aren't we leveraging the resources that we have? Incredible brains in the universities that we've got in this country, the incredible innovators that are working on the ground, the green technologies. We can be an innovative hub. We are smart enough. We have enough talented people in the UK and Europe to do this. But just like your example with supposedly the German government and this drone thing, when originally they talked about having this European Defence Fund, they originally put it in place such that only European manufacturers could apply for the fund. I thought that was extremely smart. And then obviously they backtracked, because von der Leyen, she backtracks on fucking everything, a year ago, and then decided that American manufacturers could be partaking too. We already have an over-reliance on America. We already have foreign interference in all of our governments right now. Why? Like, why are we not investing in British technology and British companies? And then as a state, be smart, use your wealth fund to buy a percentage of the company. You can't own the controlling stake, but you can buy enough of an influence that you are a big enough shareholder. You own 15%, 20% of it. You have a say as a shareholder on the board and in the board meetings. Like, so as a country, we are represented. So our taxpayer money isn't constantly going to invest in the people that are then going to screw us. Do you know what I mean? That's why I kind of just struggle.
And it was interesting seeing France do a bit of that. I don't know if you saw, but they basically said we're not using Zoom anymore because it's a US company and we
Interesting.
have a French company that does as good a job, if not better, and is more secure and is willing to work with some of the requirements that we have as a French government. And so they're trying to do that throughout the French government, where they're looking at national alternatives that are willing to work in the way that they need. As to your point, we have some of the best universities in the world, some of the brightest minds like in the world. So why aren't we using that to make sure that there is investment in this technology that we need to secure our future? Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't make sense. And even there was a lot of talk as well about people that were trying to escape the US. I mean, I never thought I'd use those words anyway, but escape the US, so academics that were really concerned, because their phones were getting viewed, by Homeland Security and all that kind of stuff. there is a significant amount of talent even in the world. So instead of being so scared of immigration, why don't we bring people in that can work with our very smart people and build these solutions that we part own as a people? You know what I mean? Because we've never been able to. We've always had to, like, we don't own part of Ineos, this chemicals company that Ratcliffe's owns, but we paid taxpayers. We paid the 15 million or whatever to this guy. But what do we ever really get for it? I mean, they do it for the right reasons. They do it because they want to keep the industry, they want to keep the jobs. It's absolutely the right reason, but we never get anything for it. And we should be fighting for it. As taxpayers, we're so used to our money just being out of our control and feeling so powerless and helpless with it. Yeah, I don't know, how do we convince people, love? That's the bit I struggle with. Like, there are so many clever and kind people in this country that are the product are getting fed this kind of propaganda and all of these lies and, blah, blah, blah. How do we reach people to say, don't listen, mate, please don't, it's not you. It's not you. Like, this machine is designed to make us go, oh my God, yeah, it's because of the immigrants. Yeah, it's the asylum seekers. And there's a lot of confusion about who's illegal and not who's illegal. And, yeah, it totally makes sense. And look at what Farage did. So I'm going off tangent, but look what he did last week. He started talking about benefits. Like, he's going after like sickness benefits and unemployment benefits. And yes, we have a lot of people on unemployment benefits. Yes, there are things we can change, but you don't just go after it. What's the alternative? People just don't have food. What? And for what reason, love? So his billionaire mates who don't even fucking live here and don't pay taxes feel like the bill goes down. What do you care, mate? You don't even pay tax anyway. Who cares, right? Why are you talking? I don't get it. It's super frustrating.
So I think we're gonna wrap, but we're gonna
Sounds good.
continue the football theme just to sort of shoehorn in a bit of levity. So one of the things I came across this morning was AS Roma, a club in Italy, who have a women's team. So most big clubs have a women's team because I think one, they recognize that there's uh, an interest in women's football, and women's football is becoming bigger every year. Uh, More women are playing, more women are going to matches, and the the women's game is much more family friendly. And I know that might sound like a stereotype, but it's the sort of place where there is less swearing, there is less bad behavior. And so if you want to bring your young family to a match, you will probably go to a women's game to watch it. So there's some fantastic and super talented professional women's footballers. AS Roma decided that as a way to generate revenue, they were going to sell the used kits of their female players. And I shouldn't laugh, but I think we have to laugh, right? Because it's just enabling creepy men. I assume it's 90% men. Maybe some women are also buying the used kits, but like men buying the sweaty socks of these professional women, it just feels wrong on so many levels. I don't know, like, what is going on?
Do they
maybe,
do that for the men's
maybe it was
squad?
just for fun.
Do they do that for
Mhm.
the men's team as well? Do they sell their
No,
Oh, okay.
where
I thought I'd
there's
be
just no
fair and
demand
just
for
ask the
that.
question, but yeah, okay, fair enough. But it's so wild. It's like you're denigrating the talent of these women by just sexualizing them again. That's all
And
this.
then
Yeah.
maybe it's an uncomfortable truth, and hopefully you can tell me that I'm wrong. But like I feel like as part of the marketing, the attractiveness of the women is can't be overlooked from a marketing perspective. Like the I'm sure many of the women players will be on their accounts, and maybe they don't have an issue with it, right? I imagine that to some extent this is part and parcel of their career, and maybe they don't like it, but they accept that if they're going to sort of maximize their earning potential, then part of that will be to be attractive, to be good looking,
But
and that's
selling
just
your
the
stuff
weird part.
though. Yeah, but I get it. Like, be you're attracted, just like footballers like David Beckham did really well because he was attractive.
Sure, yeah.
totally fine. Like it's their choice, it's their individual liberty. I'm never gonna say anything to that. I think what's weird though, it's the used kit. And it's
Yeah.
only the women's used kit and not the men's used kit. That to me is just like a whole level of creepiness. That's like
And that's the thing, right? Like, I don't I mean, I'm sure there are creepy women out there, but I can imagine, like, the audience size for creepy women is relatively small, whereas the audience size for creepy men is just massive.
but you say that though, love, but to be fair, like when you watch these shows, when people go to like I don't know, what's his name? Like these shows from like celebrities or good singers or whatever. The guy who used to be in that band, I forget his name, everyone loves him. Harry Styles, for example. Harry Styles, like he wipes his head with a towel and he chucks it in the crowd and everyone like dives on the towel. I'm like, this is what I'm asking about the men's squad, because fair dues. Like I'm sure there's lots of, you know, people who might be like, hey, yeah, oh, I get a towel from, like sports people who throw their towels or whatever. But it's the socks and the shorts and the like that just makes it like just really next level creepy.
Yeah, I think it's that weird thing of, like, you know, there's one Harry Styles, but there's, 11 professional women players on the pitch at any one time. And so, like, one guy I'm sure has a big fan base when he reaches that level of marketing and whatever else. And so, yeah, it's just the audience sizes, I think, is what it comes down to.
That's
Like,
fair.
men are creeps. There's a market for it. It's supply and demand.
Is and do you know what I'm saying to you, Alex? So my friends and I, because one of my friends, she's kind of having some struggles financially,
Yeah.
and she's joking about setting up an OnlyFans account. And we were saying to her, like, the challenge with OnlyFans, at least as I understand it, is you're not really going to make much money on the nudity side anymore because there's so many channels. You almost have to have like a niche creepy thing that some weirdo would buy. So for example, one of them was talking about someone, apparently women who fart into a jar and then sell it, or like even feet pics or whatever are a little bit passe now. It's a little bit normal, isn't it? Is it like, oh, I know, I've got this great idea, why don't we sell the sweaty kits of female football players? Like, brilliant, let's do that. Like, what the hell? So stupid.
I should have done the research and seen how much they sold. I want to kind of because imagine if it was like it just didn't work, and we're criticizing men, and actually no men bought it, or like just
That's
one or
it.
two men bought it. I'm sure, like, yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
Maybe I'll do something in the program notes, and we can sort of update this
Sounds
information at
good.
some point.
Yeah, but it's a funny one. No, I appreciate ending on this note because I also wanted, because I figured, like, because we were talking about food last week and the bouncing back nature of wet American bread. And I was laughing this week because obviously for anybody who's in England knows, sorry, in Great Britain knows that almost as soon as Christmas and New Year's is over, the stuff for Easter starts. So that everything is all about Easter eggs, effectively. Like wildly, I was saying to Fabs earlier, like £20 Easter eggs. When the
So
hell did Easter eggs cost 20 quid? I mean, it's absolutely wild. But one fast food chain is doing a cookie stuffed with a whole Cadbury's cream egg, which just really made me laugh because part of me is like, that's really disgusting. And part of me was like, that sounds quite good, actually.
wait,
I feel like I could claim that.
is it like you bite into the cookie and the egg is still whole inside?
Yeah.
Oh,
That as well. And anybody who knows, so if you're not British, you probably wouldn't have come across a
wouldn't have
Cadbury's
come
cream
across
egg
the
before.
Cadbury's cream egg.
But it's probably one of the sweetest things that you could ever eat in your
Pure
life.
sugar.
It's
It's
pure,
liquid
pure.
sugar.
It's literally liquid sugar. It's favorite sense. So the fact that they then like put that into a cookie, like I feel like the diabetes side is probably like, no, you'll end up in a coma. But the other side is like, oh, it's fascinating, fascinating idea.
I think if you got a group of like 10 friends and you have a tenth each, just to experience it, just once. Like, I can't do the whole thing. I'm too old for this. Like, as a 10-year-old where I could just burn it off, fine. But in my 40s, I can't be doing this.
No chance of
But
it.
10 of us, we can do it.
Yeah, that's kind of a good place to kind of round off our this
Yeah.
episode of Friends Let's Discuss.
Thanks for your time today, Mares. Thanks for the discussion. Thanks for helping to keep me sane. I really appreciate it.
No, same. And thank you to our well, one listener out there. And we hope that, you listening to this doesn't make you feel as alone in your thinking. So thank you.
Until next time, bye.